So if we move from, we've got to stop government authority imposing to allowing corporate authority to impose, the same cult is still calling the shots.
Icke began to explore and write about a wide range of conspiracy theories. Over the years, he has published numerous books and given countless lectures around the world.
If you look at the number of people who were supporting Trump, 70-odd million, apparently at the last election. What if that 70-odd million just stopped cooperating with the system, stopped cooperating with their own enslavement, stopped doing what the few tell them to do? Would that make more of a difference than voting for Trump and saying, well, we hope he'll be all right and save us in the next 4 years? Of course it would.
The issue of freedom of expression has become increasingly contentious, particularly with the rise of digital platforms and social media.
What I've been like, mate, all my life is I've never dismissed things that I can't know absolutely are not true.
Icke has faced deplatforming and censorship on various online platforms, which he views as a dangerous encroachment on free speech.
Because all these things are within us, and experience brings them out. And if you don't have experience, often they don't come out. So I have this phrase, life tends to give us our greatest gifts, brilliantly disguised as our worst nightmares. Mm. Because often our worst nightmare will bring things out of us that wouldn't otherwise happen. This is why if you bring your kids up and you protect them from everything, you're doing them no favors, because you're not developing strong people who will be able to deal with life. You're developing people who are always looking to be protected. And look at what we have now. And once you have a generation or you have a population that wants to be protected and perceives itself all the time as being a victim, where does the point of power move? It moves to authority, because people look to authority to protect them from what they fear or what they feel victimized by. So what we've been developing is a population of emotionally weak people who perceive themselves in terms of victims. When you have challenges in life and you meet them, it brings something out of you.
What you've got is a polarity that's emerged, not least with the alternative media becoming supporters of what you might call the right, and anyone that criticizes the left becomes a kind of hero of the alternative media. And while I'm absolutely against the destruction and suppression of freedom by governments, and he was articulate on that, I want to see the alternative, because there were some things in there that were a bit concerning, like when he was talking about not wanting a regulation or the dismantling of monopolies. And, people say, okay, everyone's getting tired of authority, all right, but what's authority? People think that authority is just government. It's not. It's also monopolizing corporations who are dictating to people what's going to happen and what isn't. When you have monopolies, for instance, that can then decide what is published and what is not published, what is allowed to be posted and what is not. And so I want to see what Milei has as an alternative, and not just take it that because he's telling people in the alternative media and of the right what they want to hear, which is, we must stop government regulation. It doesn't mean that the alternative is going to be any better, and we've got to wait and see what that is in terms of what happens in Argentina. Because, what we have is this polarization where one says white, and because they say white, the other has to say black. But actually, the truth is almost every time in the shades of gray. And so if we have no regulation at all of monopolies and their imposition on society, then that's a form of authoritarian dictatorship, in the same way as having unchecked regulation, which allows the political side of authority to dictate what happens in society. And, I've been uncovering this manipulation now for 34 years. There was no alternative media when I started out. I've watched it appear. And what you grasp is that this, what I call global cult that manifests as the World Economic Forum and the Bill Gates operation, etc., the World Health Organization, it's not just working through one side in politics or one ideology. It's working through all of them. And so what you have is governments controlled by this cult, quite demonstrably, but so are corporations, and they're serving the same agenda. Well, we're going to see that with how he runs Argentina from here. What I'm saying is words are easy, and actions are less easy, and we've got to see what form those actions take. Because, like I say, if we're moving from the regulation and authority being imposed by government to a corporate free-for-all, in which it's just an unfettered corporate fest to impose their will on the population, well, we've not moved forward very far. And like I say, we've got to start looking at the shades of grey. All regulation is not bad. It's massive over-regulation and total regulation, which is where we're moving. That's what the problem is. But without any regulation at all, then your Amazons and your major global corporations are going to run riot, and that's something that we have to be very careful about.
When I look at my life now, you see, and what I'm doing, my life before, which appeared to be a series of random events, same with you. You've had your challenges in life. What has it done? It's made you the person you are. You wouldn't be the person you are now without them. Mm-hmm. And people say, well, I regret that. Well, the thing to regret is if you don't learn from the experience. That's the regret. But learning from the experience, well, you've had a gift. What are you regretting for?
The point I would make, going back to this global cult, this network of secret societies that is behind world events, they are controlling the corporations as they're controlling the governments. And that's why you will obviously see this. That's why they're moving as one unit. If you're looking at the woke agenda, the climate change hoax agenda, and all these moves towards the digital currency and digital control and the digital concentration camp, then governments are moving that way through legislation, and corporations are moving that way via the way they run their companies and the way they are running the policies that are affecting the whole of society. So we're not looking at an either or, we're looking at a both. And that's why I say it's very important that we don't throw babies out with bathwater and think, okay, so we're going to get rid of or challenge government imposition, and forget that, the major global corporations are actually controlled by the same force that's working through governments, the same force that's working through the European Union, that's turned that from the start into a tyranny, as anyone with a brain cell could have predicted, is the same force that's running the corporations. So what I'm saying is it's very important that we don't just jump on the black or the white, but we take a step back and look at it from a much wider perspective.
According to mainstream science, if you compare the size of planet Earth with the size of the projected size of the universe, planet Earth is the equivalent of a billionth of a pinhead. So if you say that life as we know it only exists on a billionth of a pinhead within the greater reality, you are, well, that's credible. You could be an academic saying that. But you say, actually, hold on a minute. Elephant, living room, sofa, billionth of a pinhead, night sky, which is a tiny fraction even of one galaxy, and there's billions of galaxies in the universe, they say now. Despite all that, life as we know it only exists on a billionth of a pinhead and nowhere else. I mean, it's insanity. And then you think this. Look at the vastness of different forms that exist in animals, in insects, in nature, in all of it. Even in the human race. Look at someone from China or someone from Asia and someone from South America, from South Africa, from Europe. Look at the differences. You look at the range of form, of different form and expressions of form that exist within a smear of 0.005% of the universe. What the heck in the infinity beyond this reality, which is in almost the entirety of everything, what the heck exists out there in terms of form? One saying, I look down on him because I am upper class. And then the guy in the middle was saying, and I look down on him because he is lower class. And we both look upon him because he's upper class. And these labels, labels of race, labels of sexuality, labels of religion, and these are not who we are. They are experiences that our consciousness is having, our awareness is having. And once you start self-identifying with the label, you start looking at yourself in terms of little me. I am my label. I am Ethel who works on the checkout at Tesco. That's all I am. But no. You are an expression of infinite awareness, having an experience called Ethel on the checkout. You know, Bill driving the bus. You know, you say to people, who are you? You say, well, I'm Bill. I come from Manchester and I drive a bus. No, that's what you're experiencing. Bill is the name of your current experience. What you are is consciousness having that experience. And this might seem like esoteric navel gazing, but it's not. It's a totally different way of interacting with the world, and it's a total different way of self-identifying yourself. Because when you say I am are and the labels then follow, you are self-identifying with limitation. You're self-identifying, I am my experience. And if I'm, born in Leicester in a working class council house, then that defines me. That's who I am. No, that's just where you were born. Mm. You have the potential to be whatever you want to be and whatever you choose to be. But what we've got now is a massive extension even of that, whereby your label is everything. Not only are people defining themselves by the labels, the world is increasingly defining them more than ever before by them. And this is where what we call today identity politics comes from, where it's not about what is right or fair or just, which is surely the way to look at anything. It's how does this affect my label? So if I'm transgender and something happens, how does this affect my label? If I'm this race or that religion and something happens, well, how does this affect my label? So people are constantly judging the world by how it affects their label, instead of saying, well, hold on a minute, never mind all that. Is it right? Is it fair? Is it just? No matter what label we're talking about, is it fair? Is it just? Is it right? And so what you have is a situation where we have developed this belief among increasing numbers of people, particularly young people through the universities and colleges, whereby you judge everyone by a group, and then you tag the group whether it's good or not good. So therefore, instead of seeing a world of individuals with individual thoughts, opinions, observations, you judge everyone by a group. So if you say something about one group, you're a bigot, you're a Nazi, and a racist or a fascist. And if you say something about another group, then, and that group is labeled bad, then you say what you bloody like.
Yeah. I just hope that he's streetwise to how it all really works, though, and just see left and right, because the Bank for International Settlements in Basel, Switzerland, that coordinates policy, as you will know, through the central banks, is owned by this cult. They're orchestrating it. But the cult also owns the corporations. It also owns the governments, because it's been going for so long and has expanded its reach to such an extent that it's now dictating global events. And, if we're not streetwise on that and we fall into the left bad, right good, then we can get ourselves in a right mess.
In a world which is overwhelmingly programmed to see the world in a certain way, it's what happens through the education system and the media and peer pressure. It's very, very narrow band of sense of the possible, sense of what is. When you start talking about things that are different to that, then immediately the reaction is you're crazy or you're dangerous, or in my case, you're both. But what followed, of course, was mass ridicule as a result of the Wogan show. And people said, it must have been horrible. Well, it was, but it was the greatest gift I ever have been given, because it set me free of the prison that most people live in, which is the fear of what other people think. Mm-hmm. When you literally can't walk down the street without being laughed at. I mean, I lived my life for a long time after that to the sound of distant or even close laughter. Going into a pub, forget it. So you either go under and you disappear.
What the majority of people do.
Yeah, or you come out like steel honed in the fire, and you let go of this prison, this ball and chain that most of the population of the world live in, the fear of what other people think. Most people, the vast majority of people, because of this fear, are not living their truth, they're not living their life, they're not living their uniqueness, they're living what they think is acceptable to other people's version of what they should be. So they go through mental gymnastics before saying things, even more today with political correctness and all this bollocks. What can I say? So they won't say I'm this, I'm that, or what can I say and how can I say it so they won't think I'm mad?
When I started out 34 years ago on this journey, I couldn't fill a phone box with interest. No one was interested. But now, I mean, it's fantastic. And like I say, I watched the alternative media appear. It didn't exist when I started out, for a long time afterwards. But what I have seen recently, and I think it's something to be very aware of and very careful about, is the way that the alternative media, or what I call the mainstream version of it, has started to focus almost entirely on the political level of all this. And it's therefore started to polarize. If you look at the alternative media in America, for instance, it started to polarize into right-wing politics good, support Trump, left-wing politics bad, and what is that? See, when the alternative media started to appear, what we were saying is countries are one-party states, and this force is working through both political wings. So whoever's in power, the cult is in power. And that seems to have been forgotten by a lot of people, especially people that have come into the alternative media in recent times, not least since the COVID card was played, they've come in and they've lost that basic idea that it's a one-party state. Yes, there will be some politicians that are genuine, of course, but generally it's a one-party state where any party that has the power to form a government is ultimately answering to this cult. And therefore, to say, MAGA, the right-wing republicanism is the answer, is just going down a very, very old road where we've already been, and it's led nowhere.
We have unbelievable numbers of television channels, radio channels now, 24/7, beaming out all over the world, all the time. How often, comparatively, do you see programs about the nature of reality? Actually, who are we? What is this place? What are we doing here? Surely that would be at the center of questioning, but it's not. It's marginalized, because if you have a population that is living a reality which actually doesn't exist, but they experience it as if it does, you've already put them in a cul-de-sac of perception. And that's where you want them. If the few are going to control the many, you can't have an enlightened population. You've got to have an ignorant population that believes in things that aren't real. And that's why you hit so many lies pour out of politics, because they're trying to get the population to believe something that's not true. But this is a much deeper level of it. Let's get them to believe in a reality that's not true, while the very few, not the politicians, are overwhelmingly ignorant as anyone else, in fact more so. But at the core, in the shadows, they understand how reality works, and they want the population not to know. That's why you don't have this, who are we, where are we, how does all this work, discussed in any length or even at all, mostly in the media.
What I'm actually doing, funnily enough, given the what we've been talking about, is I'm not going down that left-right route, that left-right explanation. I'm saying that actually all these things are controlled by the same force, and if you don't see that, then you can be working for this force while thinking you're working against it. And there's a lot of people in America who support the whole Trump phenomenon who are falling for it. I mean, if you look at, again, not words, but actions, what someone like Trump, who claims to stand for freedom, would have done at the end of his last presidency is to pardon Julian Assange and Edward Snowden. Instead, he used the power of pardon to pardon a bunch of crooks, including his son-in-law, Jared Kushner's father. It was Trump that claims credit and still claims credit for pushing through the Operation Warp Speed fake vaccine program. So now we're having, again, this next side of Trump, or the next stage of Trump, where they're now saying, yeah, he'll be president. And what I'm hearing is exactly the same that I heard the last time, which is, get Trump in, Trump's the savior, Trump's the man who will sort it out.
According to mainstream science, the electromagnetic spectrum, which is basically the reality we live in, is 0.005% of what exists in the universe. And the universe is only one construct within infinity. And visible light, which is the only frequency band that we can see, everything we see visually is within this band, visible light, is a smear of the 0.005%. Some say it's a bit more, as much as 0.5%, but negligible, whatever. And therefore, we're not actually living in a world. We're living in a band of frequency, tiny, which contains an informational field or fields. And we are interacting with those informational fields.
This is one of the major reasons why politics is such a diversion, because the number of people that are pulling the strings of the world is absolutely tiny compared with the apparently 8 billion people in the world having their strings pulled. And therefore, there's no way a few can control the many if the many won't cooperate or won't allow themselves to be divided to fight among each other, not least politically. It's not possible. If we won't cooperate with the few have no power. But what we have is this political system where people are persuaded that to change anything, you have to have a politician do it for you. So it's like what this cult is doing through the political system is buying time. So, okay, Trump's the savior, okay, and then 4 years later you realize he's not. But the cult has had 4 years to advance its agenda.
When I'm talking about non-human races interacting with and manipulating human society, I've not sat in a darkened room and pulled it out the bloody ether. I've been to more than 60 countries over 30 years researching this. I've talked to whistleblowers on the inside of the American military and intelligence complex, many of them. I've talked to shamans around the world who are carriers of the ancient knowledge of those societies. And when you put what the two say together, you get the same answer, that yes, there is a non-human force that is manipulating human society. And you see it in ancient accounts. You see the common themes around the world in different cultures describing the same thing. And you see one common theme, for instance, which is that this non-human force manipulated human genetics. This comes out in the Old Testament, for instance, as the sons of God who interbred with the daughters of men. People say, "Oh, that's in the Bible." Well, yes, it is, but the theme is everywhere in non-Bible countries galore, cultures galore, and so you put it all together and you come to conclusions. Then you write it down, you connect the dots, and then you put it out, and then people decide whether they want to believe it or not. That's the deal. But when you look at how narrow the band is that we can see and perceive, my experience over the last 30 years says to me that's not an accident. Mm-hmm. Somehow human genetics has been manipulated to only perceive a very narrow band of reality, which makes us obviously far more controllable. See, if you said to me, "Who are you?" I would say I am awareness. I am a state of being aware. Forget the body, forget everything. In my base form, I am a state of awareness. I am a point of attention within an infinite stream of awareness. And you are a point of attention in the same stream of awareness, and so's everybody else. But your point of attention, which is influenced by your life experience, sees the world in a certain way, and my point of attention sees it in a certain way. But we're all together points of attention within the same stream of consciousness. This is what makes racism and sexism and all these isms utterly nonsensical. Unfortunately, if you want to find racists, then go and find anti-racists. Because anti-racists are obsessed with what? Race. They see race everywhere. In other words, we're back to the labels. They see labels everywhere. You are a that race label, you are a that race label. No. Doesn't matter if you're black, white, or sky blue, pink. They're just vehicles for experience, transitory experiences. Do you think we are Muslim or black or white or Hindu when we leave the body? Of course not. These are belief systems within this tiny band of frequency we call the world. And because we self-identify with them, instead of just enjoying them, I like being a Muslim, I like being a white guy, I like being a black guy. Okay, fine. It's an experience. Enjoy. But don't think it's you, because once you think that your labels are you, bang, And so what transformed my life is when I started to understand this, and I started to self-identify, not with David Icke as who I am, but as what I'm experiencing. But what I am is consciousness having the experience. That's what's leaving the body at what we call a near-death experience. When people leave the body, they've got no eyes, but they can still see. They've got no brain, but they can still think. It's because they are consciousness, and consciousness has the ability to hear, think, everything. But the body, what the body does, you think of consciousness. Consciousness does not, if you like, vibrate. It's not within the frequency band of this reality we're experiencing. So it's like Radio 1, Radio 2, Radio 3 or 4 are all sharing the same space, but they don't interfere with each other. Why? Because they're not on the same frequency. So consciousness is not in the range of frequency that we are directly experiencing in what we call the physical world. So to experience this band of frequency, this reality, our consciousness takes on what we call an external form, which is operating within the frequency band of this world. And because of that, I can pick that glass up. My consciousness could not pick that glass up because it's on a completely different frequency to the glass. But operating through this outer shell, what I call a biological computer, it can pick the glass up because there are compatible frequencies. One of the things that is a head shaker to me, and I smile to myself these days, is over the years, people have told me, authority is trying to tell me even more now, that I'm wrong, and because I'm wrong, I can't say what I'm saying and write what I'm writing. And then they prove me bloody right. I said back in the 90s when I was producing the first books that there was a plan for the world, and that plan included the destruction of freedom of speech and the creation of a centrally controlled global fascist, communist, Marxist, whatever you want to call it, state. They're all different terms for the same tyranny. That this included microchipping the population. Don't even start me on that. It's way along the line already. And that money would be taken out of circulation, so only cashless digital money would be used, which has fundamental implications for freedom and control. And a stream of other things which have all come true. And the reason I could do that is very simple. How did Aldous Huxley, in 1932, in his book Brave New World, how was he able to describe genetic, drug, and other things that in a dystopian way that is now happening? How could George Orwell be so accurate in 1948? What about the other people that I quote in my books, insiders way back, who were saying this is what's going to happen because this is the plan? And it's all happening in detail, not even theme, detail, because there is a plan, there is a script. Freedom of speech is being systematically destroyed. And I'll give you the outcome on that. The outcome, desired outcome, is that there comes a point which we're moving towards so fast when no one will ever see or hear anything that is not acceptable to the authorities, to the system. And we are seeing now daily freedom of speech and censorship being increased and increased and increased towards that desired outcome of deleting all information that the authorities don't want people to see. Now, what's been happening? The internet was actually created by this cabal. One of the reasons is that they wanted to put all information eventually that people receive and where they get their information, thus their perceptions, which come from information received, that's what perceptions are, from the internet digitally. And the reason they want to do that is because once it's digital, then you can use algorithms to censor. You don't even need human input. Once the codes are in place, the algorithms, as they're doing now, will censor what people can see and hear. Now, what is freedom of speech? It's the freedom to speak. And if you have the freedom to speak, then you have the ability to challenge the prevailing narrative, and thus you're never in a situation where people only see and hear what the authorities want them to see and hear. For that to be reached, that situation, free speech has to be deleted. Otherwise, they're not going to get there. That's why free speech is being deleted.
Well, I've not voted for a very long time, living memory, because if I'm going to vote for someone, I want a choice. I don't want an illusion of choice. So in Britain at the moment, we have a conservative government led by Rishi Sunak, who is absolutely owned to his DNA by this global cult and connects into the whole tech arena of control and AI via his family connections. And the opposition in this country, who is very likely to get in, God help us if they do, is the Labour Party of a man called Keir Starmer, who, if he gets in, he will be Britain's Joe Biden. It will be unfettered cult agenda being imposed on the people, all the climate agenda, all the woke agenda in all its forms. It's going to be on steroids if Keir Starmer gets in. So where's the choice? You can have the cult agenda a little more slowly, or the cult agenda on steroids. And it's by thinking the political system is actually going to change anything, that's the problem. That's the diversion. We, the people. I mean, how many people live in the Netherlands compared with the number of people dictating to the people of the Netherlands? Then the ratios are ridiculous. The few can only control the many by the acquiescence of the many and by the many obeying what the few tell them to do. If we stop and say, hold on a minute, is this just? Is this fair to everybody? No, it's not, so we're not doing it. Then the political authority ceases to be. And this is the way that this house of cards is coming down. And it is a house of cards because the people, through their acquiescence and obedience to authority, are holding the house of cards up. If we stop doing it, it would fall. It's a psychological trick, and giving your power away to politicians is fundamental to that trick.
I am a physicist, inventor, entrepreneur, and, well, I guess change maker. I'm 13 and I feel like I can change the world, and I've already started my positive impact on it.
Max Laughlin's intellectual journey began at a very young age, fueled by an insatiable curiosity about the universe. He became widely known for his ability to grasp complex scientific concepts.
At the age of 8, I concocted my first conductive liquid explosive and had finished reading my 5th big physics book.
His early fascination with physics led him to explore theories about the universe, time, and the nature of existence, often drawing connections between scientific principles and philosophical questions.
It has been a burden of mine to change the world. Almost like responsibility. It's my purpose.
One of Laughlin's most talked about ideas revolves around the concept of parallel universes and the nature of reality itself.
Aside from inventing a whole bunch of different stuff that probably won't matter now, but my most recent thing, which has gotten me a little bit of attention online, is my energy device, where I extract electromagnetic energy from everything around us and convert it into electrical energy. In other words, a stream of unlimited energy. Throughout history, people like me have been prosecuted and killed murdered, and a lot of other very horrible things. And if I have support from a lot of people, I don't think that that will happen in our modern day and age. We're a little bit too civilized for that. So all I'm saying is that if you think the world should be a better place too, then, just support. Quick question. How many of you, when you were working on a difficult project, just got up out of bed when you needed sleep to go do something to settle your mind? If I'm in the right place, I'm guessing we all have. I remember being told to go to bed, but was too busy working on an impossible problem. There it is. Impossible. I can't deal with that term, or at least my relationship to it. I can't stand being told that something cannot be done, or more accurately, I can't sleep for it. Anyway, I was working on an impossible quantum physics problem, and unfortunately, I was commanded to go to sleep. Except I couldn't. I was in the mode. I was on the brink of solving a problem that I was trying to crack for weeks. So I pretended to go to sleep, like all of us have when we were children, and waited for everyone else to. And then I got up and ran straight to my lab. I worked all night into the morning, and then, well, it hit me. I fixed my mistakes and solved my problem. There it is. I solved an impossible problem. Impossible? I think not. The problem was solved, so was it really impossible in the first place? Most people have a relationship with the term impossible, or they say it can't be done ever. But maybe we need to change that. We need to redefine the impossible, because maybe nothing is impossible, just, not known how to be done yet. But that means that there's an infinite number of parallel universes in our multiverse. Let's move that there and focus more here on these lines. In our multiverse, and there's an infinite number of these realities. And in each reality, as every electron spins an animeter of an animeter to an animeter to an animeter around a nuclei of an atom, we're catapulted into, an infinite number of alternate universes. So a lot of people think God is, quite in the biblical sense, a guy sitting up on a cloud who controls the universe, frankly, and has created all life. But my definition of God is not like that. I don't believe God is person or entity. God is just another form of energy. Well, actually is energy. Himself, well, not even himself, itself. For the fact that you look at the Bible and other really, awesome but extremely vague and unreliable sources in religion that hold these sources that we find and facts that we find, or so-called facts that we find, and really a lot of people think it's just about faith. But if you relate the Bible to quantum physics and apply most of the laws actually in less of a figurative sense, but more of a literal sense, and replace it with things like the universe, you'll eventually find out that it explains in-depth quantum physics and astrophysics, experiments and theories. Well, maybe not theories, because maybe now they're proven. Who knows? Maybe the Bible isn't a story of something that happened on Earth, but maybe a story of how our universe began. For the fact that, honestly, I don't really buy into the literal biblical sense, like, God is literally a guy who looks like us, who sits up in an alternate realm that's in our clouds and, watches over all of us. But I guess you could say that he's an energy form that created all, and is everywhere and nowhere at the same time. God, or energy, lives within us, through us, and is us, frankly. So I was 7 years old when I watched the Back to the Future trilogy for the first time. I got a visual representation of what people thought the future would be like. Okay, so in this movie trilogy, I got a visual representation of what people thought the future would be like. And what I thought the future would be like is, frankly, what the movie described it to be. Amazing. Well, as you can imagine, 2015 just came and went. And still no hoverboards. Yeah. And the closest thing we have today is a balancing Segway that catches on fire and blows up. Definitely not fair. We were all hoping we could zip around in flying cars, but instead, we have electric cars, which, by the way, have been around since 1828, so, you know, not new at all. So, what's the problem here? Are we not creative enough? Maybe we're not trying hard enough. Unfortunately, most of us were all just waiting. That's it. That's our big problem. We were waiting. Instead of reaching for that future and trying to create it, it seems that we're waiting for it to be served to us on a silver platter. Well, sorry, that's not good enough for me. So throughout my life, I spent every day I could trying to invent the future that we all imagined. I looked at many of the problems we have today in this world, designed, made, tested, all the solutions I could come up with. In my, well, boiler room turned laboratory, I'll just say I have limited resources. Instead of playing video games and watching TV, I was inventing new technology that I believe could change people's lives. Just to give you an idea of how my undeveloped brain works, at 5.5 I was solving complex algebraic equations in math class when everyone else was learning to add and subtract. The teacher had to give me brain teasers just to get me to shut up. At age 6, I wrote my first line of code in C++, which led me to, at the age of 7, hacking school computers that gave kids access to games that were banned for no reason, like Pac-Man. So therefore, if there are other universes, they're next to ours, and this actually relates to my theory of the Mandela effect and how the particle accelerator altered the weight of one electron and therefore destroyed our universe and shifted us into the universe that's directly next to it, and therefore things are different in this universe. Sure, so the Mandela effect is the effect of some people thought that Nelson Mandela died at a certain time, and other people remember it as a different time. And this goes for a lot of other things, you know, Star Wars, classic videos, Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. Everybody knows that. Well, if you actually look back to the original film, it's not Mirror, Mirror on the Wall. It's Magic Mirror on the Wall. At the age of 9, I set up a small business at school where kids brought me their broken technology, and I fixed it for them. When I was 10, I finished my first of 3 online MIT courses on robotics and quantum physics. And then when I was 11, I built my first hydrofluorocarbon rocket engine and smart humanoid robot. That was a really good fighter, by the way. And I also invented a new type of neural cranial transmitter that could detect emotions, as a matter of fact. Finally, at 12, I began to deeply study quantum physics and started my company, Lawton Labs, LLC. Limited Liability Corporation. Yeah, God is energy, that's my thing. And I mean, like, you look at dimensional theory, and eventually we have, you know, a singularity at the beginning of the universe that is energy, and then, you know, eventually that begins to slow down in vibration due to entropy or some other law of that sort, and then, you know, first you get photonic light, and then that slows down, and then we get matter, and then that slows down, and then who else knows what comes next? We have gravity, and then we have time, you know, all coming in at one sense. And I mean, does that sound like origin story to you? It kind of does a little bit to me, but, you know, maybe that's just a coincidence. Maybe these philosophers or unreliable monks, we call them, that lived up in the mountains and wrote this weird book that doesn't have any factual evidence behind it, maybe they were quantum physicists ahead of their time, and maybe they're just trying to tell people, you know, who lived a crazy long time ago that there is an entire new quantum world out there. But, you know, education wasn't too good back then, so I guess they had to simplify intense quantum physics to something that a 5-year-old could understand. Here I am at 13, one of the youngest technology company CEOs in history, I'm told, working on a machine that will monitor quantum mechanics with an eye on someday building a quantum computer when I get my hands on the necessary materials, of course. Also, if you're any of the 7 million viewers that have seen me on social media, you know that I have invented a device that extracts electromagnetic energy from all around us and transfers it into electrical. And that also got the attention of Anonymous, who posted, "We should clone this kid" on their Facebook page. I'm a little bit paranoid from it. Too much for a shy 13-year-old such as myself to handle, I fear. So, as you can imagine, I obviously didn't have many friends. How else would I have all this time? Certain parts of the Bible you can get literally if you convert the letters to numbers.
Speak a little louder if you can.
The Fibonacci sequence, if you invert, of course. But in certain important parts of the book, you'll take certain parts out and you'll get numbers, which seem random, but they're actually frequencies of resonance that line up with what's called the Fibonacci spiral. And the Fibonacci spiral is kind of weird for the fact that it's called literally God's thumbprint, which is a little bit weird considering that we have spiral galaxies, spirals in our thumbs, spirals in our ears. Literally almost every organism on the planet or object we have found has had some sort of reminiscence of Fibonacci in it. And I don't know, it's called God's trademark or God's thumbprint, but I don't know. Dimensional realities, I'm not sure if we can prove that yet, but we do know that there are other dimensions. There's an infinite number of numbers, which means there's an infinite number of frequencies that we can calculate. And if there's an infinite number of frequencies that we can calculate, that means there's an infinite number of frequencies that mass can take. And if mass can take an infinite number of frequencies, there must be an infinite number of dimensions. But as of right now, I'm beginning to question string theory and M theory for the fact that I believe that there are more, mathematical dimensions. Yes, I'm actually quite aware of that. But then again, imagine we're looking at this from a fourth dimensional perspective, we can always go up one dimension from there. We can't say that there's a limitation. In other words, we know that there's dimensions below us, but we've never even gone into negative dimensions even. And to even contemplate the fact that if we were at the top of the dimensional scale, there'll have to be something above us. In other words, if you're at the top of a dimensional scale, we have to have some sort of limitations, right? Everything does. And if that has limitations, then it opens up an entire new set of dimensions, and then what happens when they're at the top, and then they're at the top, and continuing on and on forever, I guess. But where do you really start if you wish to change somebody's life? You can make an endless list of gizmos and gadgets, but when do you really impact somebody's life? So many problems, and even more solutions to each one. I don't even know where to begin. Well, actually I do. Let me tell you a little bit about it. Every problem has a bigger source problem behind it, and ultimately I found that all of our modern technologies and electronics need energy. Also, a lot of places on the planet still don't have electricity when they need it for basic reasons like water filtration and light. And by the way, on top of all that, the number one way that we're getting our energy for these devices is destroying our planet, our number one resource. People can't afford energy, and it costs a lot. There's so many problems with it, so why can't we just make it more simple? Our world needs a low-cost, efficient energy source that won't run out and that is affordable. So I began to study alternative energy resources. I began to reach farther. What I set out to do is create a low-cost, unlimited energy source that had the potential to save our world from this core problem. You can see why I drive myself crazy. After finishing up a couple quantum physics books, I realized that everything in the universe has a frequency and vibration. That's right, people. Everything is just a frequency of energy. All of the energy in the universe is already here. It just needs to be transferred into a form in which you can use it. After further research around quantum physics and mechanics, I discovered that we can receive waste energy in the form of electromagnetism. So I got straight to work, of course. After 47 hours of straight working, I had finished the device. I had finished creating a device that takes wasted electromagnetic energy from all around us and converts it into electrical. Here's how it works. You collect the energy on one side of the device, where it's then amplified, then polarized. The energy is then integrated into opposite polar semiconductors, where you put a coil around between and on each side of the electromagnetic module and collect the energy. Voila! Free energy. Now I use this energy that I made out of thin air, sort of, to charge batteries and other devices. Now, considering that this was just a prototype, I was really happy. And I got to a point where my idols, such as Nikola Tesla, big fan by the way, have always reached for and dreamed of for our generation. So is all of this just to pat myself on the back? No. If you remember back to the beginning of all this, it was all seeded because of a desire to be creative and curious, to make the world a better place, to reach into our future and bring it just a little bit closer to today. Some people in this reality, I guess, maybe didn't make it from our last reality, I'm thinking. I'm still trying to figure out why they don't remember it, and some people do. But anyway, though, that is the Mandela effect, and we are living in an alternate expansion of our universes. Even in my own scientific notes, I've found rewritten signatures and things that are a little bit different from originally what I wrote. I believe that everybody in this room has the capacity to change the world. Just take this with a grain of salt. I'm 13 years old. That's right, 13. And I invented a device that could give a kid light and darkness so that he may choose to educate himself so that he has the opportunity to grow up and help more people. Yeah, we altered the weight of a single electron, which I believe shifted us into a parallel universe, considering that we caused a chain reaction that could have catastrophically destroyed our universe. I mean, even when we thought about starting it, we thought our universe would implode, and then it didn't, and we're like, oh, it's okay. Well, maybe it did implode. We just instantly got shifted to another universe.
And that's your belief?
Right, in my belief. Of course, this is just a theory, and it's still being developed.
Okay.
But yeah, maybe in that infinitely small moment of time, we were instantly shifted. Universes that are right next to each other, and as I said, these are infinitely close yet infinitely far away from each other. We have our universes. And the farther away a universe is, the more different it is because of each individual event. Now, the distance and amount of universes between these two lines is infinite. Like, it's kind of crazy. You can't draw it or visualize it. It's just infinite between each line, and then an infinite line between their lines, and lines and lines and lines and lines, infinite over and over again. But anyway, somewhere down the infinity over here, we have a parallel universe, right? And in this parallel universe, maybe it's completely different. Like, everything is completely different. Like, maybe our entire existence is nothing and never will happen, but maybe maybe time's running backwards, or maybe everything is slightly off in a way, like universes aren't created from nuclear reactions, more just form, and then nuclear reactions occur, which then create more universes, which then reverse to create other universes. As I said, infinite universes, infinite everything. So there's an infinite number of possibilities. And even as I speak this, my very speaking of this is creating an infinite number of universes, and in one, and in many of them, this is exactly possible. So after our universe and timeline was destroyed, we were, let's zoom this in a lot, zoom, 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 and the universe that's directly next to ours, it's just directly next to ours. Energy cannot be created nor destroyed, only transferred from form to form. But if there are an infinite number of universes, then there's 100% chance that this happened, at least maybe in another universe, maybe not ours. Then again, there's also an infinite chance that this is our universe. So if this one was eliminated, all the energy from this universe created or transferred a universe that was right next to us. Even if you have quantum data or other things that possibly could help calculate these claims, then you'll find that there is a fluctuation pattern of which our universe is on a similar plane. So if this is our plane, there's a universe in this plane, which means that this is a larger dip and this is a smaller dip. So that way there's a fluctuation in our reality of actually things that are real to us but are different in other realities. There's a consistent fluctuation, and I think this fluctuation is known as the Mandela effect for some things, and a lot of things are the same, but other things are, very different. So in this universe, it's pretty much almost exactly the same as ours, for the fact that we're all here, almost, and that everything that we see is pretty much the same.
What do you mean, almost?
Almost as in, I don't know. There's an infinite number of possibilities, so there has to be at least an infinite possibility that somebody on this planet is gone from that time. Or maybe there is an infinite possibility that there is. But the point is that it's a parallel universe to ours. So it is not our universe. It's just not ours. Exactly the same, except for that 0.000000000000000000000000000 infinite number of zeros, 1%.
Yes.
Difference.
Right.
And that 1% difference is large on our scale, or even small on our scale, but it's still different. Enough that it's able to contain our energy, but not enough that it's the same. As I said, it's a parallel universe. It's not the same as ours. And if we have to arrive at the same time that we left, then there has to be difference. There's that fluctuation. And one of these fluctuations was maybe something different. Maybe one person decided to walk on the other side of the sidewalk, as it is uncertainty, at least in our future. I mean, if you're in a higher dimension like the fifth dimension or looking on our fourth dimension, uncertainty is just a matter of which way you're going, like a road. But to us, uncertainty doesn't happen because we can only see the present as it's happening.
I'm 13 years old, and I've started my journey to make a positive impact on this world. Now, if a scrawny 13-year-old such as myself could stand up on stage and try and make an impact, then why can't we all together and watch how far the ripples we created at Nexus travel?